Welcome to a Legendarium special about Elagabalus. In this episode, we will cover the rise and fall of Rome's worst emperor. A 14-year-old boy became emperor of Rome, attempted to impose a new religion upon the empire, and had a very good time while doing so until his own bodyguards objected to his behavior with their swords. Varius Avitus Bassianus, later called Emperor Elagabalus, was born during the year 214 AD, unfortunately, at Emesa, a Roman town in modern-day Syria. His father was Sextus Varius Marcellus, and his mother was Julia Somus, a niece of Emperor Septimius Severus's second wife and empress, Julia Domna. Despite this connection to the Imperial family, the young Avitus devoted his early life to religion, becoming the hereditary high priest of the sun god Elagabal. During his adolescence, Emperor Severus died during the year 211 AD, one of the few emperors of the 3rd century to die in his bed. Power passed to Severus's son Caracalla, who kept it by murdering his brother Geta. For 6 years, Caracalla ruled the empire with an iron fist. In 211 AD, the emperor began preparing for a major campaign against the Parthian Empire. In 217 AD, Caracalla assembled a huge army and began marching east. While visiting a temple near Kere in present-day Turkey, one of his own soldiers stabbed Caracalla in the back as he urinated at the side of the road. His assassin supposedly became enraged after Caracalla denied him promotion. The emperor's bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard, immediately executed the assassin, and their commander, a man named Macrinus, took power from the Severan dynasty. Caracalla's mother, Julia Domna, widow of the late Emperor Septimius Severus, spoke of propelling her great-nephew Avitus to the throne. However, she began dying from cancer in 217 AD and starved herself to death rather than leave Rome during her final weeks. Her surviving kinswoman Julia Somus took over the plan to make her son Avitus the new Roman emperor. On May 16, 218 AD, Julia Somus smuggled the young Elagabalus into the 3rd Legion's camp with help from the Roman commander Comazone. His mother's and grandmother's bribes, along with young Avitus's remarkable resemblance to the late Caracalla, convinced the soldiers that he was in fact the illegitimate son of Caracalla, just like his mother hoped they would believe. One of the legions proclaimed young Avitus emperor on May 15, 218. Other legions joined the Severan cause, while a few rallied to defend Macrinus. On June 8, the two sides met in battle, and the 14-year-old boy became ruler of the Roman Empire. The fallen Macrinus attempted to cross the Bosporus at Cappadocia, only to drown along with his 9-year-old son. Upon his arrival in Rome, the Senate officially recognized Avitus as Rome's youngest ever emperor and gave him the regnal name Elagabalus. To celebrate the Severan family's return to power, Julia Somus and her son supervised the execution of high-ranking Macrinus supporters and elevated Syrian flunkies in their place. In a sign of Julia's importance to the new regime, Elagabalus granted his mother the title of Augusta, allowed her to attend Senate sessions, and put her face upon Roman coins. The Senate likely hoped for peace after the sudden rise and fall of Macrinus. Instead, they found fresh horrors. With an adolescent's appetite for the outrageous and unlimited power, Elagabalus hosted dinner parties where he forced guests to eat camel feet, flamingo brains, cow's udders, and jellyfish alongside live, flapping parrots. Sometimes Elagabalus kept the real food for himself while serving his guests wax and stones painted and cut to look like food, which caused many chipped teeth. He even hid tame lions and leopards around the palace and released them to terrify his guests. As a high priest, Elagabalus intended to replace the traditional Roman religion with the worship of his patron god Elagabal. To that end, he brought his god's symbol, a large black and cone-shaped stone, possibly a meteorite, from Emesa to the Palatine Hill in Rome. He placed Elagabal's black stone in a chariot decorated with gold and precious stones. He forced the Romans to worship the god stone as he led it throughout Rome in lavish processions. He also ordered the construction of a new temple called the Elagabalium. There he shocked traditional Romans by appearing in outlandish Eastern silks and gold embroideries and presiding over large-scale sacrifices of bulls, sheep, and pigs, whose blood and entrails moldered on the steps of the Elagabalium. Emperor Elagabalus even collected children of noble birth from across Italy, performed magical chants before them, and then murdered them in his god's name, foreseeing the future by supposedly reading their entrails. He then further horrified his dinner guests by spreading the entrails of sacrificed children around the palace floor for them to slip upon. Desperate to calm the Roman ruling class, Julia Somis pressured her son to marry an aristocratic Roman girl named Julia Paula, but Elagabalus soon divorced her because he found a blemish on her body. Elagabalus then married a second wife named Annia Faustina and disposed of her in a similar fashion for similar reasons. Finally, he settled upon a third wife named Aquilia Severa, a Vestal virgin forbidden by a centuries-old taboo from marrying. Elagabalus flouted Roman religious law by living with her in the Imperial palace and declaring he would sire godlike children with her. However, Elagabalus' true passion lay for a slave boy named Hierocles, and Elagabalus sometimes dressed like a woman and allowed Hierocles to beat him as if he were his legal wife. Elagabalus also painted his eyes, rouged his cheeks, and put on a wig to look like a woman. He actively searched for a physician who could transform him into a woman, and in the meantime, Elagabalus frequented brothels, drove out the prostitutes, and sold himself to any willing man. As a hormonal adolescent with absolute power, the high priest of an exotic god, and a foreigner who imposed Eastern customs upon Rome, Elagabalus could not hope for long-term success. Unsurprisingly, the soldiers who defended his empire became furious when they heard of him dancing around the altar of his temple and purchasing gold chamber pots rather than attending to state matters. During the summer of 222 AD, the Severan family convinced Elagabalus to stave off mutiny by naming an heir. He chose his 13-year-old cousin Bassianus Alexanus, the future Alexander Severus, the son of his aunt Julia Mamaea, as his new heir. However, it did not take long for Elagabalus to see his cousin as a serious rival. The family became divided. Julia Somis stood beside her son Elagabalus, while Julia Mamaea and Julia Maesa supported Alexanus. Elagabalus' regime only survived because his family governed the empire while he pranced around. Now, with his family divided, his power and his life would soon end. The crisis came to a head on March 11, 222 AD, when Julius Somis and Elagabalus ordered the Praetorian Guard to execute Alexanus. They refused, and the emperor traveled with his mother to the Praetorian camp to win over the soldiers. This final gambit did not go well. Praetorians fell upon Elagabalus, who fled into a latrine, and they stabbed him to death while he hid in the outhouse. The rebel Praetorians then dragged Elagabalus' mangled corpse through the streets, and the soldiers further insulted the late emperor by thrusting him into a sewer. Yet the sewer chanced to be too small to admit the corpse, so they tied a stone to the dead emperor to keep it from floating and hurled him into the Tiber. His mother died in a similar fashion. Disgusted by the antics of the young emperor, the Senate erased his memory and destroyed anything which bore his name or likeness. His first cousin, who took the name Alexander Severus, followed Elagabalus to the Imperial purple. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.